Developing tropical cyclone in the Coral Sea, severe thunderstorms across Queensland, extreme heat building through Western Australia with temperatures approaching 50 degrees. That is what we are looking at across Australia right now. And if you have been following the tropical situation over the past few days, you will know that this is a developing story that warrants close attention. Let me break down exactly what is happening and what it means for you over the coming week. Right now, we have got two separate tropical low-pressure systems that are about to interact in a way that could produce a tropical cyclone in the Coral Sea by the weekend. The first system, designated 14U by the Bureau of Meteorology, is a broad and messy low-pressure system sitting well offshore in the central Coral Sea. It is disorganised at the moment, but it is there, and it is contributing to the overall moisture feed across the region. The second system is the one to watch. Tropical Low 17U is currently sitting over Mornington Island in the Gulf of Carpentaria. This is a tighter, more organised system, and it is forecast to track across the Cape York Peninsula over the next few days before emerging into the Coral Sea around Thursday. Now, here is where it gets interesting from a meteorological perspective. When 17U crosses the Cape York Peninsula, it is not going to behave like a typical weak tropical low. Because this is a monsoonal system, we are looking at enhanced westerly winds across the peninsula. Sustained winds between 60 and 80 kilometres per hour, with gusts potentially reaching 100 kilometres per hour closer to the centre of low pressure. For those of you around Thursday Island and the Torres Strait, this is going to feel like a weak tropical cyclone, even though it has not been classified as one. Heavy rainfall, strong winds and generally unpleasant conditions from tomorrow morning right through to Thursday. The Bureau of Meteorology has not ruled out issuing severe weather warnings for this area, and I reckon that is a fair assessment given what the models are showing. The heaviest rainfall is forecast to begin tomorrow morning as 17U starts properly intensifying. That monsoon flow is going to kick into high gear, and we are looking at significant totals across the northern Cape York region. If you are in Waipa or anywhere north of there up into the Torres Strait, prepare for a wet and windy few days ahead. By Thursday morning, this system is expected to emerge into the Coral Sea, and this is where development towards tropical cyclone status becomes more likely. The warm waters of the Coral Sea, combined with favourable upper-level conditions, should allow this system to intensify as it moves towards the southeast. Now, I want to address something that I know many of you are already thinking about. The track forecast for this system beyond the weekend is showing some unusual behaviour across multiple models. The GFS, the ICON model, the Access model, and even Google SAI forecast are all showing this system potentially making a U-turn in the Coral Sea and tracking back towards the Queensland coastline somewhere between Rockhampton and Cairns early next week. That is 4 out of 4 major forecast models agreeing on a scenario that we do not see very often. A tropical cyclone tracking southeast into the Coral Sea and then turning back towards the west or southwest is an unusual pattern. It happens, but it is not common. The steering flows in the upper atmosphere are showing a ridge of high pressure building in the Tasman Sea and another ridge near Fiji, which could funnel this system back towards Queensland. I am not sold on this scenario just yet. We need to see more consistency from the models over the next couple of days before we can have confidence in that track. But if you are on the Queensland coastline from Townsville down to Rockhampton, this is worth keeping an eye on. Not worth panicking about, but worth monitoring as the week progresses. For the North Queensland and far North Queensland coast, the good news is that even if this system does develop into a tropical cyclone, the southern and western side of the system is expected to be relatively dry and weak. The moisture and the strongest winds will be concentrated on the northern and eastern side as it moves through the Coral Sea. So direct impacts to the coastline look minimal at this stage, but that could change if the track forecast shifts. Many of you remember Cyclone Yasi back in 2011, Category 5 system that crossed the coast near Mission Beach. That was a very different setup to what we are seeing here. Yasi was a classic tracking system that maintained its intensity right up to landfall. What we are potentially looking at with 17U is a weaker, more disorganised system that may or may not make it back to the coast. The two situations are not comparable in terms of intensity, but the unusual track is what makes this interesting. Moving on to the thunderstorm situation across Queensland. Southeast Queensland has been copping it over the past few days, and that pattern is set to continue through this week. For those of you in Brisbane, you would have noticed the activity yesterday. That shelf cloud that came through around midday was impressive. Strong winds, heavy rain, and some small hail reported across parts of the city. Conditions that felt similar to what we experienced back in late November. The storm development over the next few days is going to be driven by that moisture feed coming down from the tropics combined with daytime heating. We are looking at scattered to isolated thunderstorms each afternoon, particularly across the inland areas of southeast Queensland and into the Darling Downs. Now, I have been watching the rainfall totals across the region, and I know many areas have been doing it tough. Toowoomba has only recorded 35 millimetres since the 1st of December. That is well below average for this time of year. Brisbane, particularly the northern suburbs around Aspley, has also missed out on decent rainfall this summer. The thunderstorm activity we are seeing is hit and miss. Some areas get drenched while others just a few kilometres away stay dry. That is the nature of summer convection, and unfortunately there is no sign of widespread soaking rain on the horizon for the drought-affected areas. If you are on the Sunshine Coast around Nambour, you have probably noticed the storms dissipating before they reach you. That is a frustrating pattern that we see when the sea breeze interacts with the storm inflow. The storms lose their energy source and fall apart before they can deliver meaningful rainfall. The Gold Coast picked up some good rain yesterday afternoon, enough to settle the dust and green things up a bit. If you are in that part of the world, you might actually have to get the mower out over the next few days. First world problems, but there you go. For the rest of New South Wales, showers are continuing across parts of the state. Nothing particularly heavy or widespread, but enough to keep things damp across the coastal fringe and into the ranges. Down in Carcoar in central western New South Wales, conditions have been quite different. Cool temperatures with a top of only 23 degrees expected today and an overnight low around 13. It has been blowing a gale there for days on end. That is the influence of a trough system moving through the interior that is dragging cooler air up from the south. Now, I need to talk about Western Australia because what is building across the Pilbara region is genuinely concerning. You know, I do not like to talk things up on this channel. I do not do fear-mongering, and I do not exaggerate for clicks. But when I say extreme heatwave conditions, I mean it. The Pilbara is about to experience some of the hottest temperatures on the planet over the next couple of days. Today, temperatures across the northwestern parts of WA are pushing towards 48 and 49 degrees. Tomorrow, we are looking at temperatures approaching 50 degrees in several locations. There is even potential for 1 or 2 spots to hit 51 degrees. To put that in perspective, a 44 or 45 degree day in this part of Western Australia is on the upper side of normal for summer. A 47 degree day is what I would consider very hot. We only see about 4 or 5 of those each year in the Pilbara. Anything over 48 degrees is a once a year type event. When we start talking about 50 degree temperatures, that is serious heat. And keep in mind, those are the official readings taken at the standard measurement height. At ground level, particularly on the roads, ambient temperatures could be approaching 52 to 54 degrees, possibly even higher. The Bureau of Meteorology has issued extreme heatwave warnings for the Pilbara region. When the Bureau uses the word extreme, they mean it. My advice, and this is not something I say lightly, is to avoid travel through the Pilbara region over the next couple of days, if at all possible. If you are travelling between Carnarvon and Port Hedland, or anywhere along those inland roads, the risk of a breakdown in these conditions is genuinely life-threatening. If your air conditioning is not working properly, do not travel. If you do not have adequate water supplies, do not travel. If you break down in 50-degree heat without water and shelter, you can be in serious trouble within hours, not days. This is not the time to be complacent. Check your vehicle thoroughly before setting out. Make sure your air conditioning is working. Carry more water than you think you need. Let someone know your travel plans and expected arrival time. For those of you who remember the heat events we have seen in the past across inland Australia, you know how quickly conditions can become dangerous. The difference between 47 degrees and 50 degrees might not sound like much on paper, but it is significant in terms of physiological stress. Stay in air-conditioned environments where possible. Check on elderly neighbours and mates who might be doing it tough. Look after your livestock and make sure they have access to water and shade. This is the kind of heat that takes lives if people are not prepared. Turning back to the tropical situation in the Indian Ocean. Tropical low 16U is sitting offshore from the Kimberley coast west of Darwin. This system has been struggling over the past few days due to significant wind shear in the upper atmosphere. A couple of days ago, The forecast models were taking this system towards the WA coast as a potentially significant tropical cyclone. Now, no major model is even predicting tropical cyclone development. That is how quickly things can change when wind shear interacts with a developing system in ways the models did not anticipate. The rainfall event that was forecast for Darwin over the weekend never materialised. The low pressure system tracked too far to the west to bring the moisture across the top end. A frustrating outcome for those hoping for decent wet season rain in Darwin. However, this system is still producing shower and thunderstorm activity around Cockatoo Island towards the north of Derby and Curry Bay. It is not dead yet, but its chances of significant development have dropped considerably. I would say the all clear can largely be given for the Pilbara and Kimberley coastlines from this particular system. But before anyone gets complacent, the tropical signals for the last week of January and into the first week of February are still showing potential for activity across the northwestern coastline. We could see another low pressure system approach the WA coast south of Christmas Island towards the end of January. There is also potential for development around the Kimberley region or the top end of the Northern Territory in that same time frame. The message here is simple. Tropical cyclone season is far from over. Just because 16U has fizzled does not mean WA is out of the woods for the rest of summer. Stay prepared, keep monitoring the official forecast from the Bureau, and do not let your guard down. Now let me bring this all together with what you need to be doing over the next few days, depending on where you are. If you are in the Torres Strait or Northern Cape York Peninsula, prepare for several days of strong winds and heavy rain starting tomorrow. Secure loose items around your property. Make sure you have essential supplies. This is not a tropical cyclone, but it is going to feel like one at times. The conditions should ease from Thursday or Friday as the system moves out into the Coral Sea. If you are on the Queensland coast from Cairns to Rockhampton, keep an eye on the track forecast for this developing system. We do not have enough confidence yet to say whether it will track back towards the coast, but the models are hinting at that possibility. I will be providing updates as the situation develops. For now, no action required, just awareness. If you are in southeast Queensland, be prepared for afternoon thunderstorm activity each day this week. Have a plan for where you will shelter if you are caught outdoors. Do not get caught on the water if storms are building. The storms we have been seeing lately can produce damaging wind gusts with little warning. If you are in the Pilbara region of Western Australia, take the heat seriously, avoid unnecessary travel, stay hydrated, check on vulnerable people in your community. This is not normal summer heat, this is extreme and it deserves respect. If you are in Darwin or the top end, the wet season remains frustratingly inconsistent. More moisture is likely towards the end of the month, but there is nothing significant on the immediate horizon. For everyone else across the country, conditions are relatively benign. Enjoy the settled weather while it lasts. Looking ahead to the longer-term outlook, the monsoon trough is expected to remain active across northern Australia through the rest of January. That means ongoing tropical development is likely both in the Coral Sea and potentially the Indian Ocean. The signals for late January and early February suggest we could see more organised tropical activity affecting both the Queensland and WA coastlines. Whether that materialises into named systems remains to be seen, but the ingredients are there. For those of you who follow the climate drivers, La Nina conditions continue to influence our weather patterns. The enhanced moisture across northern Australia is consistent with that setup, and we can expect above average cyclone activity to continue through the remainder of the season. That is going to do it for today. The key takeaways are developing tropical activity in the Coral Sea with an unusual potential track back towards Queensland, extreme heat across the Pilbara that warrants serious caution, and ongoing thunderstorm activity across Queensland. Stay safe out there. Do not be scared, but be prepared. The best thing you can do is stay informed and have a plan. I will have more updates as the situation develops, particularly on the Coral Sea system as we get more clarity on its track and intensity. Look after yourselves and your mates.